purchase beautiful bouquets and graduation teddy bears for your special graduate. You can pre-order ahead of time and pick them up at our kiosk on graduation day. Visit thecommencementgroup.com/IUP.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Crimson Conversion here on the Penn Sports Network. I'm Jake Slobodnik, joined by Stephen Langdon Jr. and Jeff Hart, where today we'll be discussing IUP baseball, lacrosse, and track and field. A lot of these teams are off to a hot start. However, our first subject today, not really off to a hot start, and that's the IUP baseball team. Coming off two series against the Mercyhurst Lakers, who are nationally ranked. They lost 3 of those 4 games, Saturday and Sunday, and then they played Lock Haven today, recorded Tuesday, February 9th. Or April 9th. I'm about 2 months behind. But going off this Mercyhurst series, they lost Saturday, however, really a very, very close contest. Stephen can attest to that because we called that for the radio station here on at IUP. Losing the first contest 3-0 and then 3-2 in the second one. However, Colin Klaus and Jeff Allen looked really strong throughout those games, despite taking the loss. One really notable stat is that they both tallied 8 strikeouts in their starts. So really considered one of the they're both aces on the team. And when I talked to Coach Rebianski for my column write-up, he said he was blessed to have these 2 players, just for the pure and simple fact their leadership skills on and off the field. Really consider them aces. So Coach Rebianski has a lot of faith in them. Continuing on,
the one thing I like to say about the game really quick is, unfortunately for IUP, I think if their bats showed up in that game, in those 2 games, I think they could have had a good chance of winning.
Well, if their bats were probably woken up, it probably would have been a better fare for them. However,
although Mercyhurst does have a very strong pitching staff, mind you, you're not ranked 8th in the nation for nothing.
Well, and Stephen, you're talking about the bats showing up. We talked about last show, and I know I had speaked about it. You can't rely every game for your batters to just be feeling it every single game and have them bail you out of like a bad pitching performance. You need to be able to have consistency when it comes to pitching and who you have in your dugout. So I feel like that's going to be a repetitious thing we see throughout the season because I think that's something we're going to have to watch them grow upon.
Well, you speak about bats being relatively dormant. However, one bat in particular, Marcus Sestra, he looked strong. In the second game, as he drove in 2 of their 3 runs earned for the day. And despite staying dormant on Sunday, the IUP Crimson Hawks came alive in game number 2. They lost the first one 10-3, but then they came back and won it 8-3 in upsetting fashion. Second game on Sunday, so congratulations, folks. They won the second game on Sunday. But here, to give you an idea of just how well they played that day, let's take you through the first inning recap where they scored 7 unanswered runs. Started things off with a Chris Eisel home run. Chris Eisel stayed relatively quiet on Saturday. We can attest to that. But he was able to come back on Sunday. Ben Teplin drove in Sestra to make it 2-0. Vigliotti scored Matt Swartz on a walk. Nick DeAndreth, a freshman who we really saw this weekend, do a lot for the team. He singled to right field, scoring Nick Hess. Drew Weglars, who didn't see any action on Saturday, came up and he scored 2 runs. Vigliotti and Teplin were driven in after a single to left. And then finally, to really end the scoring run in the first inning, Sestra once again struck as him, Eisel, and Weglars were able to advance on a passed ball. Weglars able to score on that. And then they were able to tally one more run in the game, taking it 8-3. So nonetheless, a very hard-fought victory for the Crimson Hawks in that second game. So congrats to them, upsetting the nationally ranked Mercyhurst Lakers. But then came today where we saw pretty much a full-length Major League Baseball game, playing a little more added to it. They lost, however, 18-17 in 10 innings. And here's the thing. They took it to extra innings but surrendered a 5-run 10th. They came back, but they only scored 4, so they were able to drop it only by 1. But here's where I have a huge problem with it. Lock Haven isn't really that good. They are an under 500 team, and we lost the lead. We had the lead going into the bottom of the 5th, the top of the 5th, and we lost that lead and gave it up. It should have never went to extra innings, but we gave it up and lost that game, which should not have happened.
Yeah, they were going back and forth with each other all game long. I know as well. I know right around the 7th inning, I think it was, 7th or 8th inning, it was, 13-12 at one point?
It was a high-scoring contest, and we like to see that, but if you're IUP and you have the lead going into the later innings, you need to be able to lock it down. But we've seen time and time and again that the bullpen is I wouldn't even say a disappointment, but it really hasn't lived up to its potential in this part of the season. And we're heading into the later part of the schedule now. So, and we still have a lot of guys that are still over maybe 10-8 ERA. It's becoming a hindrance to them and preventing them from winning more games. I don't know. That's the only major disappointment factor for me is that we could have won, and especially taking advantage of a team such as Lock Haven, we should have. We should have just won. But unfortunately, it's a one-game series and we dropped it. Looking ahead, they play Gannon on Friday and Saturday, 4 games, 2-day series. They're away on Friday, 1 and 3 start time, and then Saturday they come home to Doherty Field for a 1 and 3 start time. Quite honestly, after what we've seen, what's your guys' expectations? I'll get mine into bed, but I want to hear yours.
So, as far as my expectations for the team, I want to make one comparison, and I don't even know if I made it on the last episode that's going to be put on the Penn tonight. They remind me a lot of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
I made that comparison.
Yeah, I don't even remember who it was, but I agreed with you on it because they need closers. That's their problem at the moment. Like you said, when the deeper you get into that bullpen, you don't have guys who can close the game yet. That doesn't mean they can't develop, and that's not any aspersions on them. It's just they're not ready at this moment. They could definitely develop into that or be coached into that. But right now, they're going to have trouble closing out teams because unless you have some astronomical batting night, which is what Steven and I were talking about, you're not going to be able to win games because you just need to get this insurmountable lead with your batting. But if you don't have closers, like baseball, I think is one of the most important sports where you need a closer to help seal the deal, like give you the win. And unless they develop that, I feel like the rest of the season is going to kind of be a hot and cold thing. Some games where they're it's kind of like in the NBA or even basketball when someone's having a hot night from the arc. When they're having a hot night from the arc, you're almost guaranteed to win the game because they're just so prolific offensively that even if they don't play a lot of defense, it doesn't matter. So in baseball, if you have some great batting night, you don't have to worry about your pitching as much. But as long as their closing's still a problem, it's going to be one of those like when they're feeling it, they're really feeling it. And when they're not, they're really not feeling it.
Well, when they put their trust in Mike Klingensmith to really come in and shut the door, Klingensmith delivers. I think it's more set up middle relief problems that they have. And like you said, Jeff, their bats are a huge problem. We saw them; they scored no runs in the first game on Saturday. And Steven, I think if I remember correctly, didn't they tally only 4 hits in that game, or less than that, and 4 hits in the second game?
There were not a lot of hits. I can attest to that.
Calling it for the radio was a snooze fest.
By the way, listen to the radio 90.1 WIUB FM.
Yeah, nice plug there.
Had to do it.
But
it did become a snooze fest towards the end just because Mercyhurst kind of went into they got deeper and deeper into their bullpen, and they have just a phenomenal pitching staff and just a phenomenal team altogether. And it just seemed as though the deeper and deeper IEP got, I don't know if it was just that they were tired or what, but they just could not hit the ball.
When you're a team and early production is not a big factor, it's demoralizing to you and your squad. And I feel like that's where sort of a lot of the lack of production came into play. They were like, well, we're not getting it early on. What's to come later on in the game?
Well, I mean, obviously their bats are pretty good if they could score 17 runs, but
it just goes back to the pitching thing.
They can't put together a complete game. It just seems as though it's either one or the other.
I will hand it. Colin Klaus and Jeff Allen did a lot of the work on Saturday. They almost went complete innings, 8 strikeouts, but they suffered the loss. It's like Jacob deGrom for the Mets last season.
Well, here's the thing, though. They had one just rough inning, each of them. Each of them had just one really bad inning, and that's what kind of led to the loss because I think the team relied upon them a little too much, maybe. And that's the reason why that they just, like I said, their bats just did not come alive whatsoever.
No,
but then, like I said today, they come out with 17 runs, but still get the loss. So I don't know what it is about them.
It takes a lot to put 17 runs up, but it also takes a lot to let 18 runs cross the plate.
Because they're a dangerous team, but at the same time, they're not.
Their younger talent is really doing a lot of the work for them, at least from what we saw on Saturday. Granted, we're starting to see Chris Eisel come around more. He did a lot against Lock Haven, but Nick Deandrith, Marcus Sestra, Deandrith a freshman, Sestra a sophomore, did the majority of the work on the offensive side, Steven, if you remember that. And they're going to be dangerous going forward, but I just think that this season hasn't been the best for him in the offensive category. We saw during that contest, and I want to close in on this for this subject, is during those 2 games, their top hitters in Nick Hess, Matt Swartz, and all those guys, they were limited. I think Swartz went 0 for in each game. Hess, I think, did the same thing as well. If not, he had 1 hit.
Yeah, they both had 2 of their, by far, statistically proven best hitters did not show up.
And you got to hand that to Mercyhurst pitching. Christian Young and Minnick.
Christian
jobs.
Young could be a potential All-American with the stuff that he has.
Oh yeah, first
because he went just right through that IUP lineup, no problems whatsoever. Was not intimidated whatsoever.
Yeah, he
and
off.
IUP has 4 players that are batting over 300.
I think it was 5. Regardless,
to go right through that lineup, just absolutely strikeout. It was mesmerizing.
Granted, the umpiring was shaky.
I think the umpiring was good. I think the umpiring was good. There was a couple close calls, but you see that in every baseball game. I think the umpire did a great job just calling. He called the game very fairly.
Oh, he did. He called it both ways, but I just I think his strike zone was a little sporadic at times, and I really think that he did not want to hear from any of the coaches because we saw he threatened to throw out Spano for Mercyhurst when I think it was during the second game.
It was during the second game, very early on. Fairly early.
He did not say a thing all day. And you and I were very close to our dugout. He didn't say a thing all day, and yet he was already threatening to kick him out. That right there, you need to have a bigger leash, a little bit of a bigger patience level when you're an umpire, especially if you're controlling the pace of the game.
He did come out of the dugout, and he was screaming.
That was after the warning. That he got warned, or that he came out of the dugout. And I understand. It doesn't matter whether he came out of the dugout.
He started screaming during the play, though. That deserves a warning.
It's tricky being an umpire. I am, and when hothead coaches are a big thing in the game.
Jeff, what's your take?
Yeah,
what's your take?
My take is I wasn't there, and I'd have to be there to actually give a good view. And here's my thing when it comes to officiating for any sport. It's up to the discretion of the person officiating. So if they made the call, as long as the call was not so egregious that every single fan thought it was wrong. It's just part of the game. It's human error. It's part of sports. It's human error. It happens. Like, I get one thing is like in the NFC Championship game with the Saints and the Rams, that call was so bad that like that should be reversed. Or even we saw in the Virginia game in the March Madness, that call that cost the team. That's one thing. But when it's something that's debatable like that, I don't think it's as egregious. It's part of the human error aspect of sports.
I mean, yeah, it is up to their discretion, and quite honestly, you can agree with me on this that sports are a very high level of intensity thing, and when coaches are going to get angry, you're not going to please anyone when you're an official. That's given. Coaches are always going to voice their opinions, and most likely it's displeasure. How many times do you see an official come after a game, and a coach goes up to him and goes, "You did a fantastic job." Especially on the losing end.
But I think that goes more towards my point of it's human error. It's what you expect because I think in almost every game there's a call for every sport that you could say, okay, well that wasn't the right call, or it could have went this way. So I think that's just part of the expectation that people are going to get calls wrong. And I'm not saying people like that. It's just one of those you live with it. It's just one of those like it's become a constant in sports. It's just you don't mind it after a while unless it's just horrible.
Yeah, and like he wasn't horrible. The home plate umpire, who I'm going to remain nameless, mostly because I don't know his name, but he wasn't bad. I just think he was very low on patience. And when you're an umpire, you need to have patience in the game. But this isn't about the umpiring. It's not about anything about that. It's about IEP's performance, and they weren't there to show up. So we'll see how they do against the 19-9 Gannon Golden Knights this weekend. But handing over to Jeff, let's transition over into women's lacrosse, who had a very nice victory this past week. So why don't you go more into detail about it?
Well, yeah, the ladies lacrosse team had a really great weekend. They went up against number 9 ranked East Stroudsburg and came away with a win 12-10. It was back and forth the entire game. It was 6-5 going to the half in IUP's favor. East Stroudsburg took it at one point until the end of the game where Adriana Greco gave they had an amazing performance from a couple of players. Greco had 3 goals, Katie Martin had 2, Shannon Hardigan had 2, and I really want to highlight how Shannon Hardigan this week was a PSAC Player of the Week because she had 10 goals this week. Really did a lot for her team offensively. And also, shout out to Carly Manser, who had 15 saves. That's a season high, getting it done on defense,
And just to put in perspective, in lacrosse, it's one of the hardest. It's probably the hardest position to play is goalie.
Well, and absolutely. And when you're looking at the score, 12-10, people think about that. She allowed 10, but stopped 15. That's impressive. And, it's just one of those things that you just have to give credit where credit is due. And I also got to give credit to Greco because Greco got 2 goals at the end of the game that gave IUP the lead and the go-ahead to really give them the game. She came through clutch big time because the game could have went either way. The victory will get them to 5-5 on the season, and now they're actually in the top 25 poll, the AP poll. They're ranked number 25th after taking down East Stroudsburg, given they only have a 500 record. But such a big victory like that can really propel you, into the upper echelon. When you really get on the map when you knock down a ranked opponent, especially in the top 10. And East Stroudsburg is no joke. They are a real deal, athletics program for lacrosse.
And now they are the only spring sport to be ranked nationally for IUP. And we've had a stellar amount of athletics be ranked this season.
About to say football, basketball, both basketball teams.
Both basketball, yeah.
Now lacrosse, which is, to me, an underrated sport.
Absolutely. I mean, with what they're doing right there on the field, they're doing a great job. They're going to take on Gannon actually tomorrow night, which is probably when this will be uploaded, Wednesday, April 10th. That should be a good one to watch. And if they play like they did yesterday, whew, Gannon's going to be in for a rough one because if they can get that kind of offense going, I mean, to put it in perspective, you had 3 players scoring in excess of 2+ goals.
Well,
that's impressive.
I think it all started when they had 19 goals against Edinburgh last week.
What kickstarted this entire run for them.
Yeah, because when you're able to score at will, and then you going into a game that you're going to be playing against a ranked team such as East Stroudsburg, then that's important, and they came out and they shined.
Well, and the 3 of us were talking about it last week, how just offensively dominant the lacrosse team is. They can put up points on a dime at any time. I mean, you have players like Greco who just three goals one game. I mean, and they get it all around. You had multiple players. You had 3 players with 2+ goals, and they can just get it going. And then when you have a goalie who can just protect the net, it's just so dangerous. If they can keep playing like this and ride the momentum, I would not be surprised to see them climb the rankings a little more. And, really, because the season is close to about halfway over. I mean, there's still plenty of time for them to do some damage in this one, and they're at a 500 record. I say they're in a good position right now after having that slow start. They can ride a little bit of momentum going forward.
They're on the attack, and they're making good run going forward.
And getting hot at the right time. They're about...
I'd rather be hot at the second part of my season than
they're
the
about
first
two-thirds completed, and if not 75% done with the season. So going into these next couple weeks, maybe they can make a push for maybe a berth in the national tournament.
Yeah, the regular season being, like you said, like close to 3/4 of the way done, they're getting hot at the perfect time. Because, as a team, it's always funny. We see in a lot of sports, teams will come out of the gates so strong, have these great records, but then they taper off towards the end of the season. I wouldn't want to be one of those teams. I would want to be, I'd rather start off a little weaker and finish strong because you're going into, the latter part of the season playing your best brand of your game. That is just the best way to go about it. I really think this lacrosse team has potential to do good things come playoff time.
That would be awesome to see. And this isn't a shot at anyone, but how often is it that we see an IUP Spring Sport go to a national tournament, let alone a PSAC tournament?
Yeah, IUP has very strong, fall and winter athletics, but like you said, it'd be really nice to see a spring sport. Now, I think the lacrosse team has the potential to do that after taking out East Stroudsburg, a top 10 team, and it's really comforting when you see their players stepping up in big-time moments. That's something that goes very underrated in the world of sports. People realize, yeah, you can put up all these numbers, but it's when did you do it? Did you do it in garbage time when the game was already lost? Did you actually sway the outcome of a game? These girls are doing that. They're making differences in big-time moments, and they're scoring when they are called upon, which I think is so important for that team. And if they can keep doing that, they're going to keep winning.
Yeah, because we saw the week prior that Allie Burrows was actually the star player, but now we're starting to see there's even more and more attackers that are just picking up points left and right.
Well, then we're also mentioning the names of goalies, which are often overlooked just because they give up one goal. A lot of people feel negative about it. We're starting to see less of one person carrying the team on their shoulder, and we're seeing a full team effort from them, and that's why it's really panning out to their success.
And you really like to see that as well, because we see with certain teams, I mean, Duke has a lot of great players, but Zion Williamson was really relied upon, and when you rely upon one person, you can't really get as far as you think you're going to get.
Well, Stephen, let me come at you. Let me give an example for the viewers that they will find that if they listen to our show periodically, this will apply a little more to them. Think about the women's basketball team when Carolyn Appleby went out for injury. Not the same team, and rightfully so. But that's the example. Didn't go as far in the playoffs.
They're still a good.
They're still a good team, but they're not a great team.
Absolutely.
There's a big difference. I'm not casting any aspersions. They have a great coach. They have great players. But when they're not when they are without their leader and the person who absolutely is the core of their team, they are not the same team.
Yeah, because they lose their point guard. Their point guard is the one that calls the plays.
And kind of like Duke when they lost Zion, they weren't the same team. But with
Absolutely.
this lacrosse team, you see an equal amount of production from everybody.
Absolutely, and you love to see that.
Well, good luck to the lacrosse team going forward. It'd be nice to see you guys in a national tournament or a PSAC tournament. But let's move on to the track and field, our final subject. Steven, you want to give us an update from track and field?
Yeah, so starting off at the Olivier Nikoloff Invitational that was held at Cincinnati University. Mind you, before I read off these stats, these were Division I opponents and Division II opponents. So the women's team finished in 11th place. 6 of the women's athletes finished in the top 10 in respective races or events. Starting out with Nicola Austin, who had 2 top finishes, finished second in the triple jump, and that was good for an NCAA qualifying jump, and also finished 7th in the long jump. So stellar job to her. Was the only women's athlete to qualify for NCAA this week. Stephanie Kepperman also had a nice finish, finishing 8th in the triple jump, and the 4x100 meter team finished 6th. So not too bad. Again, finishing with Division I and Division II opponents, so pretty good there. The men's team came in 6th, the second best out of all Division II schools. 9 hit PSAC qualifying and 2 hit NCAA qualifying. In fact, 4 individuals hit qualifying in the 800 meter for PSAC. Those athletes were Derek Knoll, Justin Jones, Dylan Ruffel, and Michael Clark. Stellar job by them. And Christian Jones hit NCAA qualifying in the high jump. A little bit more on him later. And the second invitational that was held was the Dave Labor Invitational that was held at Slippery Rock. Only 13 individuals went to that one, so a little bit more went to this one that was held at Cincinnati. But moving on, Alice Small finished 5th in the 5,000 meter run. And a little bit of news coming out from the field team is that Gregory Taylor had a career best in discus, and he also hit qualifying in the PSAC. And Thomas Habgood finished 5th in javelin. So stellar job to the track and field teams, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they could do next.
Shout out to Thomas Habgood, classmate of mine, and we worked on a project together. Great guy.
What was the project on?
It was COM 101. We had to do social movies for social change.
Nice.
Yeah, we did an interesting documentary, but great guy, and actually he's really smart too. So stellar athlete and scholar.
Habgood has been good in the class, and he's been good with the jab. So congrats, Habgood, and congrats to all his qualifiers.
I just got nauseous. Oh,
sorry, I'm trying to work on my pun game, but congrats to all his PSAC qualifying members going up against D1 opponents. Not an easy thing to do, but they qualified nonetheless. So best of luck going forward, and best of luck to the track and field team. Great records overall. So maybe we'll see a little bit of a comparison between the lacrosse and the track and field team.
Yeah, the thing about track and field is that it's more of an individual thing and not so much a team thing, is that you have these certain individuals, such as Christian Jones, that is able to go to, NCAA tournaments all the time. But then there's other athletes that are, they're qualifying for the PSAC, trying to earn those points, trying to get a PSAC crown at that point.
Well, credit to the men's track and field team that got second out of all the Division II schools. That's nothing to scoff at. That is definitely impressive.
Yeah, it's an amazing feat, and I think we're going to see that replicated throughout the rest of the season. But we'll get into that more in the coming weeks. But as always here, instead of plays of the week, let's do some athletes of the week. I'll start things off with the baseball side. Chris Eisel, congrats, junior outfielder for the baseball team. 2 home runs Sunday, 1 in each of their respective games. He even had one of those that would attribute to the upset victory against Mercyhurst at Mercyhurst on Sunday. So Chris Eisel is my athlete of the week. Jeff, what about you?
Well, for my athlete of the week, contrary to what many people who watch lacrosse may think, I'm not going to go with Shannon Hardigan. She was named PSAC Athlete of the Week. She did a great job, but I'm going to have to give it to Adriana Greco because she scored 3 goals, led her team in the last game against East Stroudsburg, and 2 of them were in clutch time, which really sealed the game for them. She had a stellar performance in that one, so I really have to give my athlete of the week to her.
My athlete of the week will be Christian Jones, second in the high jump, and like I said earlier, NCAA qualifying mark of 2.04 meters in the high jump.
All right, well, congrats to all of our athletes of the week, Chris Eisel, Adriana Greco, and Christian Jones. However, that'll bring us to the end of this episode of the Crimson Conversion here on the Penn Sports Network. Don't forget, new episodes released every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. on the Penn.org and the Penn Sports Network YouTube channel. You can check that out there. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at official_TPSN for more news and updates regarding us three in the world around IUP sports. Don't forget, this Saturday coming up, Steven and I will be taking on the air at 12:45 Eastern or PM, where we broadcast the IUP softball doubleheader against Clarion University. Should be a good one. IUP put up some big numbers last time, so it'll be entertaining to say the least. Hopefully, I'll be saying, more home run calls, and Steven and I will do some more on-air antics. It would be a good time, and we're gonna have some music in between from DJ Mikhail Baden as well. Again, coverage starts at 12:45 with the pregame show. First pitch set at 1 and 3. Only on 90.1 WIUP FM. That's 90.1 FM on the dial. And then WIUPFM.org. Or get the TuneIn app and search up WIUP FM. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a good time, especially when it's IUP softball. Subscribe to TPSN on YouTube. Again, new episodes released every Thursday morning. We apologize that on the Penn website, the last Crimson Conversion was not up. It should be up there by the time this episode is released.
Thanks, Seth.
But it should be up there then.
Oof.
Big oof. But also check out new issues of the Penn. New issues released every Tuesday and Friday on the Penn website. That's the Penn.org. A lot of good things have been happening with the issues, so definitely keep your eye on that. But as for everyone here at the Penn Sports Network, I've been Jake Slobonic, joined by Stephen Langdon Jr. and Jeff Hart, and we'll see you next time here on the Crimson Conversion on the Penn Sports Network.